one in the pipe?
Nope. Okay, good to go. Hi everybody, welcome to another project. I wanted to have a fully automatic pistol with a low rate of fire, or at least lower than normal and without any special delay mechanism. Other fully automatic pistols without delay mechanism, like the Glock 18, they go past 1000 rounds per minute, like 1200. For comparison, the AK Kalashnikov goes at 600 rounds per minute, and select fire AR-15s, depending on model and setup, somewhere between 800 and 900 rounds per minute. Starting point for this project was this Taurus 917 I had converted many years ago from short recoil operated lock breech to straight blowback. Back in the day, the firearm blog reported on this, and we'll have the link in the description. So why this gun? Because it was already straight blowback action. That's what I wanted to use here. And it has this nice decocking lever. Push it down and it drops the hammer. So there is, except the trigger, another thing on the gun that makes the hammer fall, which is a nice starting point for a drop-in autoseer. What's a drop-in autoseer? That's something you do to a semi-automatic firearm to make it go full auto without any permanent modifications to the frame or receiver, which would make this a machine gun. I'm not going into any details what I did here, and there are no pictures of this anywhere in this post. I can only say it was way more complicated than I thought, and I'm not a total newbie to this particular topic. It was not as easy as a drop-in autoseer for a Glock or an AK. And for our friends at the ATF, all the work was performed on premises of an FFL 07 and SOT. For everybody else, that is firearms industry code speak for licensed manufacturer, and also licensed for items that are specially regulated under the National Firearms Act from 1934, like fully automatic weapons and suppressors. So, no need to get a boner on me, guys. Sadly, farther down the road, I had a very nasty fallout with that manufacturer. Not over this, actually over one of his projects and his total lack of dedication and commitment. So all the videos he had taken on that same range day showing me shooting it, fully automatic, suppressed, etc. are not accessible anymore. But I got enough material to cover this topic, so let's go ahead. So, how do you reduce the rate of fire without any mechanical delay mechanism? There's only two ways to go about this. Increase the weight of the recoiling mass and increase the travel. And I wanted to have a suppressor on it anyway, so why not simply attaching the suppressor to the slide, make it part of the recoiling mass? Otherwise, it's just dead weight hanging on the barrel. Well, my first experience and experiments with suppressors I had in the 1990s in Switzerland. Back in the day, that was the gun paradise in Europe. You could get anything legally, and even suppressors were free for sale. Well, those times are long gone, but since those early days I'm aware that the powder gases exert a forward push on the suppressor. And if you envision how a suppressor works, that's pretty obvious. For demo purposes, I made a simple model of a suppressor. That's a very basic layout like we have it since the early 1900s. Here's the muzzle, that's where the bullet comes out. And we have a large first expansion chamber and then several smaller ones. And when the bullet goes through all those baffles, which could be simple washers, like in this case, then the powder gases are bouncing against these baffles, getting whirled around, following the bullet and getting slowed down and down and down in the process. That's basically how a suppressor works. And of course that exerts a forward push on the suppressor. Now I have the slide that wants to go backwards, and I'm attaching the suppressor to it that wants to go forward. That sounds like a conflict of interest, and that's why I started step by step, and in the following video you can see the slide and just the end cap of the suppressor attached. what happened here? The shot was fired, the bullet goes this way, the slide goes the opposite way. But the slide is way heavier than the bullet, so it's way slower. So by the time the bullet reaches the muzzle, the slide made it about this far to the rear. Here's the muzzle, then the bullet goes this way and the powder gas is hitting the end cap of the suppressor, which is acting like a first baffle here. And that stopped the slide movement completely and pushed the slide back in a front position. But it made it at least that much to the rear that the hammer was pushed back in a safety rest position. So if already one baffle stops the slide from cycling, what will more baffles and the added weight of the suppressor do? But there is an additional effect here. The suppressor is called backblast or increased blowback effect. We put all these obstacles in a way for the powder gases to go through, baffles, wire mesh, whatever. And at some point when they go through the suppressor, the slide has opened far enough that the rear end of the barrel is open. And some of the gases will simply escape there because they look for the easiest way out. That's what's causing that increased backblast suppressors create. And I thought maybe that increased backblast might cancel out that forward push on the suppressor and it still might work. What do you think? Well, this obviously did not work, at least not in this layout, but I was aware that there was a pretty good chance it might not work, and I was prepared to change it to a fixed to the barrel design. So that's what that square tubing is doing here. It's going inside and it's connected inside with the barrel. And as you could see at the beginning of the video, of course, that works. And by the way, these compensator holes here were not present when he was shooting it at the beginning in full auto. That was just an afterthought when I watched the video and said, maybe you should put something there that pushes the muzzle a little bit more down. And when you attach the suppressor, it will just slide over it and cover these holes. Here we have a few close-up pictures, and yes, I'm filming directly with a camera from the computer screen because I'm still using Windows 7, which does not have that built-in screen capture feature. So I'm doing it the old school way. Here we have the breech block. That's the breech block inserted into the square tubing which forms the slide. Here is the breech block welded to that tubing, and now I can get rid of this bridge here because that is my final slide contour. But without that bridge, before welding, this side of the slide and the other one would have spread it apart out of alignment. So that's what that seam welded tubing is doing. As always, careful planning of your work steps saves you a lot of trouble down the road. That's the breech face, bolt face, nothing special to see here. That's the slide assembly. Full weight is 628 grams, and it gave me a rate of fire of 19 rounds in 1.81 seconds, which translates to 630 rounds in 60 seconds, aka 1 minute, which is pretty slow for a fully automatic pistol. That's the beginning of the suppressor, the baffles, and the welding jig. Here are the baffles properly stacked in the jig, ready for welding. And that's how that looks afterwards. It was inspired by a Russian design I had seen many years ago, which looked like folded washers and then just welded together crosswise. That's the first design of the suppressor, which was supposed to go back with a slide. This latch here interacts with that slot, and then additionally the suppressor is bolted to the slide here and on the other side. This is the end cap alone, and that's the part that stopped the slide from cycling. And this hole here is 11.5 millimeter. That's the whole setup, and the square tubing sits over the barrel, and the locking block here only serves to connect the barrel with the square tubing. And this tongue here serves a certain purpose. It closes this area here, which you will see in the next picture. I have this gap here. This is the impact area where the slide, when it's going back, is impacting the frame, and that's where the slide movement is getting stopped. And normally it would be here with a regular Taurus 917, and I moved it 22 millimeter to the front to increase the slide travel, which leaves me with that gap here. Of course, I could have simply made this top cover longer to cover this, but here is the muzzle of the gun, and here is where the hot powder gases are coming out, and they would directly impact the recoil spring, which is not a good idea. That's why I went with this internal tongue design. That's the other side, and that's the final picture. That's the second variant of that suppressor. This square tubing goes over that end and it's getting bolted to it, and this square tubing is connected via this locking block to the barrel. Well, that's pretty much it.